The moment I got the email in 2016 from Fun for Teachers letting me know that I was going to be a fellow that year was probably the happiest I have been in my teaching career. I'm sure you can imagine why. The opportunity to travel and do something that I really wanted to was, of course, great. But when I look back, it was really the entire experience that changed everything for me. There's a time in my career, and it's that moment, the before Fun for Teachers and the after Fun for Teachers. It's unlike anything I ever thought it could be when I began. And I wanted to share my experience in applying and traveling and what happened afterwards with people out there who might be looking into applying themselves for the next cycle in 2020. It's something I think everyone should do. If you're a teacher and you're eligible, you should go through the process. I do see a lot of, like Facebook comments or feedback online, people getting bummed out that they were not selected and maybe weren't able to travel, which I totally understand. But I want to emphasize, and this is again coming from someone who was able to go, but I got so much out of both the before and after traveling. I think it's worth it to try to go through on your own. So I wanted to share my experience, but I think first it's good to know what I did. So if you look in the fellowship database, my blurb, my project synopsis, what I was going to do was I was going to explore British television by experiencing broadcasting center studios, filming locations, and museums throughout the United Kingdom to collect new ideas for broadcasting class and to better prepare students for careers in broadcasting and other globalizing industries. And I was very excited about this because I teach a broadcasting or filmmaking class, and I have no formal educational experience in that. The class was open, and I said I would try teaching it, and here I am years later. So thanks to things like YouTube or Google or just talking to other people, that's primarily how I learned how to teach the class. And to have something like this out in the real world and actually see what it's really like was just invaluable. Day one, Notting Hill, saw the Travel Bookstore, saw Portobello Road where they did that time-lapse scene. St. Luke's Mews, BBC Broadcasting House, stopped by the British Museum. Clerkenwell, saw About a Boy sites, went to Greenwich and the Royal Naval College. They said it's the most used film site in the world. They had no proof, but I believed them. Sky Studios at the O2. They were confused why I would ever want to be there. I left. Rode over the Thames in a cable car. South Bank, More Love Actually, Whitehall, Trafalgar. Day 2, went to the Emirates because 1, I love soccer. 2, Arsenal were the first to embrace broadcasting. 3, check out that media room. And 4, why not? London Film and TV Locations Walk with Stuart. Stuart was crazy, and Stuart loved
Bond. James Bond.
Always take the walking tour. Took the train to Poole. Day 3, why was I in Poole? 1, my friend lived there. 2, lodging was free. 3, do you know how hard it is to coordinate BBC studio tours? The days are completely random, and lining them up around the country was quite an exercise. We wandered around Poole and Bournemouth, and they were talking about the Dunkirk evacuation, how these boats left from there, and this movie Dunkirk that didn't mean much to me at the time was going to be filming there. Now it means something. Day 4, now I had a car. It took me through this tiny village where my ancestors are from, Sutton Waldron, then past Stonehenge, and then to Highclere Castle, which Downton Abbey, and rolling up that driveway to Downton Abbey. It was a wonderful trip all the way around, but you want to talk about high points. The house wasn't enough. I had to then go stay in the village, Bampton, which was an hour and a half out of my way, but then you see things like the post office and the church. Day 5, travel day. But if you're traveling, why not go to Oxford, home of Harry Potter and Alice in Wonderland? And day 6, return the BMWs. The lady at the desk said I had the most beautiful accent she had ever heard in her entire life and kept asking me to say things over and over again, which, BBC Birmingham, train to Liverpool, saw Liverpool FC, had a game that night, 2 train trips in 2 hours and a tram ride away, so why not? Beat sitting in the hotel room. Day 7, Museum of Liverpool, had a real stories exhibit about movies that have been shot around there, lucky timing for me. Meeting with the Liverpool Film Office, they left a location where Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them was filming to talk to me. Trained to Manchester, National Football Museum. Learned about broadcasting the 1966 World Cup. Media City, UK, BBC Studio Tour. Trained back to Liverpool. Went to see another place. Day 8, trained to Leeds, trained to Bradford, National Media Museum. A sure sign that things were going well at this point was I was at the National Media Museum and I had pretty much seen or heard everything that they had there. So that was pretty good. Day 9, trained to York, walking tour, still exhausted, took a nap in the train station, trained to Edinburgh, met up with this girl. Days 10 to 12, dragged Mrs. Burns to every film location imaginable in the city. My goodness, if I ever make a movie, it is going to be in Edinburgh. It blew my mind, everything that I got out of it. So speaking of, what did I get out of it? On something as simple as our social media channels, Twitter and YouTube, our views went way up. And that was kind of cool because one of the big reasons I got going on this particular fellowship was I started hearing more and more kids talking about British TV shows, which wouldn't have happened 5 years earlier from 2016. But it was due to things like Netflix and YouTube, it's becoming more widely available. So we kind of started exploring new ways to get our content out there. What we used to have was a closed circuit broadcast. It'd be in here. All that stuff is long gone, and it would go on in every room every time. So the whole school would watch the announcements. That was where it kind of ended. What we changed to then, once that equipment was no longer working, is we would get it out in Twitter, YouTube, so then in theory people far beyond the school and still within the school can see our broadcast. The Natus Michigan Student Production Awards is a state level competition. It's put on by the people who do the Emmy Awards. We don't call them the student Emmys, as fun as that sounds, because it's not technically an Emmy, but it does still have the logo there in the back, so kind of the Emmys. But before I left, we had won two student Emmys, which was pretty good, and we were very proud of that at the time. But since I have traveled, we are now the leaders in the state in terms of the Student Production Awards, the most of any school, which I'll tell anyone who will listen. We are the most in the state of Michigan with 23. And I think the big change for that was in visiting the film locations. Every single one of those awards or anything that has won a state-level award in Athens TV was produced primarily off campus. I didn't necessarily learn a lot by just staring at, this is where Harry Potter was shot, but just seeing how would I do it if I were there? How do you make this location come to life, and how does it really add to the story by it being right there in front of you versus just on a set? One general thing just around here in the room that changed that I would not have expected was just the space, how we use the space. So the space has been something in here that's been evolving in the 9 years that I've taught the class. A lot has changed. And when you're at the BBC Broadcasting House, they have this open office concept, right? There's no assigned office space. It's all totally open. You work pretty much where you can find a spot. It works here because what I try to encourage now is collaborative spaces. That's the idea behind the open office. And everywhere in the room can both be manipulated for better group meetings or is designed for group meetings. And we do have spaces if someone just wants to be kind of on their own, they can do that too. But just visiting the studios, I really enjoyed because it gave me a better idea of how to functionally use this space more for what the class is trying to achieve. There's also a lot of things that I never would have expected. We've done some outdoor film festivals since that was a thing over in the UK. And when I was in Edinburgh, I heard a lot about the Fringe Fest, which is the biggest arts festival in the world. And I wish I would have been there in August because I could have experienced that. But I was talking about that with students in my innovation class, another class I taught at the time. And they decided they wanted to start their own. So here in our school parking lot, we have an official Athens Fringe Fest where student artists come together. There's musicians, we've done films, they can sell their art. It's really cool, and it's something I did not set out to do on the fellowship, never would have crossed my mind, but when you get out to be out and experience things, that sort of thing is bound to happen. So let's talk about the most important step in this whole experience, and that is the application process. So first of all, the Fun for Teachers website is phenomenal for information for applying. They have all their rubrics, all their questions. Everything is very transparent. Definitely go there and really get to know that stuff. Spend a lot of time looking through it, combing through it. The other big thing that I really got a lot out of was they have their whole former fellowship database. So anyone who's ever been on a fellowship, and they've done about 8,500 people over the years, they have a report on there. They have where they went, what they did, their synopsis. It just makes for great reading. It's very inspiring to go there and see what other people are doing. And I think at every step of this, you can kind of see that there's going to be learning involved no matter what. If you're reading over what they're looking for, or if you're looking through the different fellowships in the database, it forces you to reflect on what you want to do. I probably worked on my application for close to a year. I would print off a copy of what I had written before leaving, take it home, and just kind of mark things off, because they give you that character limit, which I really appreciate. It was 16,000 characters, and I wanted to be sure I used every last character to my benefit. And through that whole process, I was just reflecting nonstop on my class. So in the 2015-16 school year, I already started implementing a few different things in the class that I wouldn't have done had I not even started to apply. I guess the biggest one is we had a group do a documentary about the Great Lakes, and they traveled all around the state. I had a kid who went to Haiti and made a documentary there, and a lot of that was through the planning of the fellowship, thinking, why am I not trying to get kids more outside the classroom to make their videos? That change started to happen. So even if I had never got the chance to go to Great Britain and see all this stuff, I do think that changes would have come in the class, but being able to go really just kind of accelerated it. So let's say you're up for it. Let's say you want to apply. The application period opens October 1st of this year, and you can get up to $5,000 as an individual teacher, or up to $10,000 as part of a group. And there are a few restrictions on things you can do, but by and large, it's you do what you want to do, and it was exactly what I needed. So what is going to be looked at is your fellowship rationale and purpose, your project description, teacher growth and learning, the application of learning to instructional practice, student growth and learning, benefits to community, and your budget narrative. So take your time, be organized, proofread, and just be sure you're hitting all the points on the rubric. They give you the breakdown of what they're looking for on all of them. Just have, whether it's you or other people, look at it and be honest. Give yourself enough time for this. This is not something you can throw together in a couple weeks. I do think that the announcements are made in April for that year's fellows. That's when I would start working on mine for the following January. That will give you plenty of time, gives you all summer to go through and really get a lot of research done and put your ideas together. And then the last thing I would say is just be sure you are very, very clear, both I guess in your heart and in your writing, about why you want to do this. Have a very strong clarity of purpose. I would think anyone could look at my application and understand what I was trying to get out of it, and these are the things that are going to happen in my classroom because of it. And I think it's so important to do that, because even if you are not selected and you are not able to go on the fellowship, you are still going to get something out of the whole experience of applying. It's like deep, deep reflection into what you do every day in your class. I'd like to think, even if I was sitting here making this without having traveled, I would probably be missing all the shots you saw in the beginning of me in England, but other than that, I think a lot of the learning still would have happened, because it is so valuable to take a look at your teaching and figure out what you do if you could do anything.